Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Marilyn Shannon, and this is the Breaking Free Show. And for those of you that have seen me before, you know I've cut my hair again. I don't know, just keep coming up here and having to be all new all over again. Anyway, welcome, welcome, welcome. Every once in a while, I love to do shows that are different. And today's going to be one of those shows because it's going to be me and you. And, of course, Amnon. And Amnon, hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, and you?
And you look marvelous.
Do you like it? Oh, what the heck?
I love it.
Have some fun with yourself, don't you?
Uh-huh.
I think it's part of exploring life and enjoying it as we go. So I'm really excited about my new haircut. Can't go much shorter than this, so I don't know what it'll be, next time, but we'll see. And Amnon, of course, is our producer and a very, very good buddy of mine, so I'm glad to have him here. Today's show is about forgiveness. And as I started saying when I first started the intro today, I like to do shows that are, we have all kinds of great guests. Next week we have another fun thing in store, ways of educating ourselves, empowering ourselves, different points of view, because anything that we can learn and we can become part of only makes us better and more powerful. But I like to throw in some things and have it just be me and you. And just have us have an open dialogue, conversations, brainstorm, just, come up with something new that we can grab hold of. And today my topic is forgiveness. It's a big word. It's one word, but it means all kinds of things. And I know that we all go through opportunities to be able to be forgiven and to forgive. And sometimes we're not forgiven right away. And it's never too late to reach out and forgive somebody. Never too late. I don't care when it is. It can be on somebody's deathbed. If they turn around and they share forgiveness, it's great. It doesn't matter. Whenever it happens, it's perfect. However, forgiveness, if you don't forgive, Wayne Dyer said, and this is one of my favorite, this is not verbatim, but Wayne Dyer, famous author, wrote that if you don't forgive, you might as well dig two graves. And isn't that so? If you're holding on to a grudge, if you're holding on to anger, and you take it wherever you go, isn't it like, isn't it like being in a grave? I think it is. And according to, I got this thing this morning, this definition, and I wanted to read it to you about what forgiveness is: the intentional and voluntary process by which a victim undergoes a change in feelings and attitude regarding an offense. Let's get rid of negative emotions such as revenge and increase ability to wish the offender well. And that is what forgiveness is. Nelson Mandela said that forgiveness is like forgiveness liberates the soul. If he can do it, anybody can do it. And it's interesting, we were just talking about something that occurred for me yesterday. A while back on our show, we had some guests on that played music. We had Bob Meyer, who with his has 4 or 5 different studios in the Raleigh area. And one of his students was the fastest guitar player in the world, and he had all these people coming on our show singing and how healing music is, and it was fabulous. And I was just sitting here kind of cocky and said, I want to do that. I want to sing, which I always have wanted to sing. I mean, I look at people all the time, and I envy people with a great voice who can sing. And so Bob turned around and said, well, come on. I said, okay. So for the last several months, I have been going to singing practice, singing lessons, and it's been really kind of fun. And he gave me the song, Let It Be, and he was going to have this winter benefit fundraiser, charity for a local hospital's children's ward. And so I've been practicing, and yesterday was the day that I would get up on stage and I would sing, and I did, and I posted it to Facebook. But you know what? When I was growing up, my brother for years told me, I used to sing Leslie Gore songs, like all through the house. I used to love her. It's my party. I'll cry if I want to, and things like that. And he called me Leslie Gork. and he would tease me about singing. And so, I stopped singing. And yesterday was like a release of that. And forgiveness goes hand in hand with that, because what am I going to be angry with him for? I made the choice to hold back. I made the choice not to do it. And I'm really happy. When I got done yesterday, I was flying. Was I great? Great for me. Was I great for Barbara Streisand? Heck no. But I was great for me. And isn't that all that matters? That's all that matters. I got up there in front of all these people and I sang. And, it's interesting because my son-in-law and my daughter were in the audience, and my son-in-law said that I improved over the last time he heard me sing, which I have to say, if you're terrible and you can improve, if you're terrible in something and you can improve, then it's worth doing it. It's very worth doing it. So I'm really love talking about this big word, forgiveness. There's so much to talk about. There's so many ways of forgiving another human being and forgiving yourself. I mean, what does it feel like to feel like you have been forgiven for something? Because most of the time, the things that we do in to hurt somebody else, we really don't want to hurt somebody else normally. I mean, most people are not vicious. They're acting out of fear. They're acting out of what somebody else might have told them. They feel like they have no choice, coming from scarcity, and we lash out. But when did you ever ask yourself in a moment what it would feel like to walk in that person's shoes? Do you have any idea where they were 5 minutes before that situation occurred? Do you have any idea how they woke up in the morning or what happened to them in the morning? Does that say they shouldn't have done what they did? No. There's a consequence for what they did. They have to walk around knowing that they did that. But you don't have to walk around compounding it by an ill feeling, by being angry. So I think it's really very clever of us to really dissect this word forgiveness and take a look at where and to whom we can forgive. And sometimes the person is gone. Wayne Dyer says, you might as well dig 2 graves. You know when he said that? At his father's graveside. It was a freeing moment for him when he could stand there and free his father from all the things that his father had done when he was younger, and leaving his mother and being an alcoholic and all of these things. And he was able to free him, because who's carrying that anyway? I mean, his father's probably carrying, because of course he's angry too. But Wayne Dyer, what would it have been like for him to have gone through his life feeling this thing and then all of a sudden releasing it? Isn't he better off for himself and for the world around him just by releasing this? So I know that there are people, let's see, Curly says, there was too much negativity around me. Yes, okay, I did that with my dad. So she released her dad. And, I mean, I have released my dad. And even to this day, I think of the things recently that my father had done. And I think to myself, he was in the war. This was interesting, Amnon. I realized, we did the show on Vietnam. And I was listening to, not Vietnam, we did about veterans. And I was listening to the veterans talk about post-traumatic stress syndrome. And it dawned on me that I think my father had it. But I had been harboring some anger towards him for some of the things that he had done. And then when I realized that he had post-traumatic stress syndrome, wow, that puts a whole new slant and a whole new light on things. So I really think that it's time that we don't hold this stuff back. And there's nothing wrong with sharing how you feel with somebody when they're here. I mean, when they're not here, we have to learn to make peace with things. But when they are here and you're faced with them on a regular basis, communicate. Tell people how you feel. Share with them what they did or what you think they did, because what they did, you had a choice in how you reacted. I mean, yes, they might have hurt you, but you had a choice on how that hurt you, or how do you let it go. Last week I said, I wasn't going to want to sweat the small stuff, but I want to be grateful for the small stuff. Well, in forgiveness, it works kind of the same way. It's up to us how we want to respond to somebody. Somebody does something, you can respond, however you choose. You might as well choose to respond neutral or even with love for the other person for how they have to react or how they feel like they have to react. So I think it's really important for all of us to take a look at where we stand and with whom we stand with forgiveness. So there's some things that I wanted to read to you that I think are really clever, that kind of opens up some thought. And I'm really welcome anybody to call in. If you have a forgiving story, because your story can become my story, can become somebody else's story. And all these stories give us the power to go forward. So 919-518-9773 is the number. And you can Skype in with us at computers, that's plural, 2K now, if you want to Skype, if you're calling from somewhere else, because we'd love to hear from you. But here's one quote, and this is by Tony Robbins. Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself. There is no question. Oh, here's a caller who's ready to get a gift. Hello? Hello?
Hello, it's Suziani.
Hey, Suziani, how are you?
It's funny, you just said one of the quotes that I was going to give to you, the Tony Robbins one.
Seriously?
Yeah, I mean, it's number 3 on my list, but first I want to say you were great. I watched the YouTube of you singing, and I want to tell you that I, too, feel like I cannot sing. In fact, in the summertime, when I'm singing in the shower and the windows open, the birds stop and say, what the heck is that? But I used to sing. I was a social director at a resort 20 years ago, and part of my job was we had a professional karaoke person came in every Thursday night, and the people, it was like a Dirty Dancing kind of resort that I worked at. And so the people would be, they'd be waiting for somebody to get up and sing. And nobody wants to be the first person. So they used to, as part of my job, I'd get up there and do a duet with the karaoke guy who could sing. And we'd do Moon River. And then people would sit there and go, oh, my God, she gets up there and sings like that. And so then they're all ready to come up there because they realize, man, she's really bad. I'm not that bad. But anyway, I wanted to say also something you just mentioned.
Okay.
I'm a big Wayne Dyer fan. I mean, a big one. And the story that you told about his dad in the grave, Wayne Dyer went there, okay, intending to do something totally different at his father's gravesite when he finally found it. And that moment when he forgave his father is what made Wayne Dyer who he is today. That was the pivotal change in his life. That forgiveness, okay, made him change not just the way he lived his life, but the way he looked at everything. And so I knew you were going to quote Wayne Dyer because you did in the promo. So I just want to say that I have a favorite definition of forgiveness, and I'm sure most of the people in the chat room and maybe even most of your listeners have heard it dozens of times because it was an aha moment for Oprah back in the early 90s. She had a guest that gave a definition, and she has quoted it dozens of times through the years, and so have I. And here it is. Forgiveness is giving up the hope that the past could be any different. Now, I'm going to go on from there and not discuss that with you right now, okay? But she goes on to say, Oprah, okay, many times, that when you don't forgive, it's mud on your wings, okay? And it doesn't mean, forgiveness doesn't mean condoning what somebody else did.
Right, absolutely.
And there's no way of righting the wrong or even accepting it, okay? And that's not what forgiveness is about. So, and it's funny because breaking free, okay, it's about letting go. And every quote that you'll hear about forgiveness touches on that because, all right, just another one. Forgiveness does not change the past. It enlarges your future. And that was Paul Bose is who said that. But, and I'm going to skip Tony Robbins because you did him. But Tyler Perry has a great one. And, I'm saying these because most everybody can relate because they know who these people are. They're saying it. When you haven't forgiven those who've hurt you, you turn back against your future. When you do forgive, you start walking forward. And that's Tyler Perry. A quote that I've heard quoted, attributed to many different people is, forgiveness is not something you do for someone else. It's something you do for yourself. And you touched on that already. And Marianne Williamson, who anybody who's an Oprah fan knows who she is, and she's running for office right now.
Is she?
Yes, she is, in California.
Uh-huh.
The practice of forgiveness is our most important contribution to the healing of the world. And then this next one, I love all of these. Lewis Smedes is who I'm quoting now. Forgiving what we cannot forget creates a new way to remember. We change the memory of our past into a hope for the future. So you see, forgiveness really, unforgiveness will keep you from moving on. But here's another one we all know, this man, Deepak Chopra. What we don't recognize is that holding on to resentment is like holding on to your breath. You soon start to suffocate.
Right. Hold on a second. I wanted you to
Sure.
go back to the Marianne Williamson thing.
Yes.
Because one of the things that she said a long time ago in one of her books, well, obviously a while ago, was something about you can forgive somebody, but you don't have to you don't have to spend time with them.
No.
So you could forgive somebody for what they did, but not want to be in their company, and that is
see,
okay.
It's not about now. That's the next thing I'm going to get to, though. And I'm absolute. I have her books. I have Wayne Dyer's books. I mean, you and I probably read the same people.
Obviously.
But, Deepak, and I could go on. But the thing is that here, this is what who I wanted to get to. You quoted somebody who I quote all the time because I've read a lot of her books, but also I'm a big fan of hers. The great spiritual teacher, Iyanla Vanzant.
Right.
Okay. Who she was over 20 years ago, was a regular on Oprah. They had a falling out, Marilyn,
Yep.
falling out. And Van Zandt now has her own show on Oprah's own station because they live on TV. When she first started the own station, they settled this in public, okay? And each one thought that the other had done something to them, and neither one had forgiven, and they had to do it right there publicly.
Right.
And look how their lives changed once they did. Not just because Van Zandt got the show on OWN, but it is the biggest draw to the OWN network, which was failing, and that turned it around. So just by that act of forgiveness, but they had to talk it out. We can't read each other's minds.
So here is her. Do you have a quote of hers?
Oh, well, this is what I'm getting to.
Okay.
Okay. Not only a quote, but she has a way of explaining, okay, how you actually forgive. And that's what I want to get across. So
Okay.
all those quotes, this is what I'm getting to. Iyanla Vanzant said, everything is just as it needs to be.
Do you
If
want
we
to know what?
forgive-
I have to interrupt you. It's right in front of my face. I have that same thing sitting here ready to read. Go ahead, read it.
Okay. Everything is just as it needs to be. If we forgive, our minds and hearts open, and we could see another possibility. Okay, now, again, okay, I've read her two favorite books of mine are In the Meantime that she wrote and Peace from Broken Pieces, which was after her daughter died. She was bankrupt, she was broke, and she was homeless, and she came back from all of that, and that was all in the time that her and Oprah weren't even speaking. But okay, she has explained this many times, and so I preach. I'm not a preacher. I preach this. Okay? And this is why I want everybody to pay attention. I don't care if you listen to a word I say, but listen to this, okay? If you look at why you need to forgive, okay? You said it. We can't control the actions of others, okay? We can control our reaction to it. but there are things that rub us the wrong way, okay? And we get hurt by people's actions and their words, and then we have trouble forgiving them. But if you sit back and think about it, okay, every time from the time you're born that somebody offends you or hurts you or does something mean to you or whatever their actions were that brought on these negative emotions, every one of those becomes a thorn in your arm. Picture it. I want you to visualize all these thorns, okay? Now, they were put there from people in your past. Now somebody says something to you, and they hit one of those thorns. We call them buttons, okay? Everybody's got their button that you can push, their little trigger that brings on an emotion, and it's an immediate reaction. But it's now she explains it saying thorns and buttons, okay? And often when people hurt you like that, it has nothing to do with them, okay, or what their actions or words were, okay? It has to do with your old hurts. Now, how do you then forgive and move on from that? Well, Elanya Van Zant would explain you have to do the surgery. You have to be your own surgeon. You have to make the diagnosis first that you have these thorns. You have to recognize them. And then you have to actually get out the knife and surgically remove those thorns. When they're gone, okay, then, I mean, you can't put a Band-Aid on them. You really have to pull them out. You can't, like, make excuses for your reaction to what other people say. You have to recognize, okay, that abandonment issues, okay? If you were abandoned when you're young and then now you're in a relationship and the guy dumps you, okay, you're reacting because it brings back the old hurt of first abandonment.
Okay, so hold on. All right, hold on to that for a second.
Right.
Okay, so what I want to get from some of what Susiani is saying and what I want to put out there is that there are lessons to learn in those moments, in the emotional moment of what's occurring in those moments when you're feeling the hurt. There is something to learn about yourself in that moment. And and by looking at these moments in a state of gratitude as opposed to anger, you can take that moment and learn something from it that could teach you something, as well as open up something that you would never have dreamed of occurring, but because of that moment, it does occur. So there are gifts that occur in these moments between you and somebody else, me and somebody else and me, that could trigger me into resentment, the thorns, whatever. But I could look at that moment and go, so what is this? What button is this pushing in me that I can learn something about my button? Yes. And how can I turn it into something good?
Well, you can't. You have to remove the thorn. And I'll, see, I don't like thorn the way she describes she used thorn. Simpler terms, you get a splinter. You know the splinter's there. You know you should pull it out. You don't. Now every time you go to use the finger that the splinter's in, okay, because it's been festering, it brings back the pain again, okay? So if you immediately remove the splinter, you don't have that problem. And that's why forgiveness has to be immediate, okay? Forgiveness has to be immediate. If it isn't, that's another thorn. And you're right, it doesn't hurt the other person. They don't even know that they hurt you in a lot of cases, or that you're sitting there making yourself sick over it. Okay, they're going on with their lives, and you're still stuck.
Yes, and you want to find that as soon as you can. But if you can't find it as soon as you can, find it as soon as you can.
Yeah, but you see, then I can't find the quote right now. Okay, but the other quote is about. Oh no, here it is. It's Martin Luther King Jr. You ready for this one?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Forgiveness is not an occasional act. It's a permanent attitude.
Right. So that's
you have to learn to do it, though.
Well, yes, and understand that there are going to be things that people do on a regular basis. Maybe the same person over and over and over. It could be somebody different, but there are going to be things that people do on a regular basis that is going to piss you off. Plain and simple. People will piss you off. They're in a bad mood. Somebody else pissed them off. Something happened to their car. They looked at you funny. They didn't know they did. They were short people. But the more in touch we get with ourselves, which is, i.e., learning about our buttons and experiencing our own emotional ups and downs, the more we can experience ourselves, the more we will be in touch with when we are hurting somebody else. And
and that's the hard part because you see it. Okay, you know how when you say something, you see a look come over somebody's face. If you pay attention, you'll know when you said the wrong thing. That's the time to say you're sorry, because then it's going to fester in them if you don't, because that's what we wait for. Okay, we think people are going to say they're sorry and then we can forgive them, but I'm sorry doesn't come easily. Okay, and if somebody doesn't know that they've hurt you that way or offended you, you're never going to get it. So now it's festering in you, but it's not even a thought to them. So here's the thing. You have to forgive yourself first. Forgive yourself for feeling the way you forgive, okay? And then the thing about other people forgiving you, you can't force them. You said that, okay? But you can forgive them even for that.
Right.
Okay?
Yep.
And it's not hard. It's really not hard to do. I do get pissed, okay? I get pissed. Okay, and my friends know, okay, let me rant. It'll take 2 minutes, and I'm done with it because I put it away. You get rid of it immediately.
Well, it's important to put it away kind of like healed, or as much healing. Don't put it away until you've touched it. If you put it away untouched, yes, if you put it away untouched, then it just grows bigger, like a big thorn. But if you put it away, having had some revelation about it, some touching on it, that the person didn't mean it, or the person doesn't know any better, or this is the only way this person knew how to react, or I don't know where they were and how they woke up that day. But if you put it, some kind of something on it, the thing about it is, Susiani, is not taking these things personally.
That's right. Exactly. That's the other thing I preach. If you don't take the key to happiness, okay, and the key to a peaceful life is forgiveness and not taking anything personally. That's right. It. Me and Marilyn, you and I are like of the same mind. But I have to say something. Carrie just said in the chat room that I did my homework, but I didn't. What it is if I didn't have all my own paintings on my walls would be filled with quotes. Okay. I mean, I write things down constantly on little scraps of paper, and so all I did this morning was go through my scraps of paper. Okay.
So this is a topic. Why is this topic so important to you personally?
Because that's how my life changed.
When you forgave.
It was pivotal for me.
Is that what you're talking about, when you forgave someone?
Yes.
Is that something you can share or not? You don't have to. I'm just asking.
No.
It's your choice.
It's not. Okay, I've had to do a lot of forgiving in my life, or else I would not be able. Moving on, okay, and moving on and letting go is breaking free.
Sure.
I had to break free of my entire past.
Right.
Okay?
Yep.
I couldn't do it unless I changed those bad memories into something else. Okay? And, there's too numerous to mention what I'm talking about.
Okay, that's okay.
But suffice it to say that there are things that people say, how could you ever forgive that? And I have. And the way that I have done it was to realize, okay, when you harbor those feelings, you're sick, okay? It makes you ill. I mean, people think sadness and grief, yes, too, can cause illnesses, all right? But harboring anger, resentment, looking to get revenge, all of those things are so toxic, all right? And how you get rid of all that toxicness is with being in a constant state of forgiveness. You have to be willing. You have to make it a mindset. I had to change my life because I was getting very ill, okay? And also, too, I was to the point where my body wouldn't even function anymore. It was physically affecting me.
Right.
And in the last 2 years, and I can't tell you it was one thing. I've been grieving for years, one loss after another. My best friends, my mother, my grandma. I mean, it was constant for 20 years.
Right.
Okay. But when my Aunt Ellen died, and she and I grew up together, we were in the same crib together. She was only 45 days younger than me. On the 13th, she's going to be dead 5 years. I didn't ever think I'd get past her death, but I had a 4-hour conversation with her days before she died, and she knew this was it, and nobody wanted to hear it. And so the people, I don't live near her, and this had to be on the phone. But the people that were close to her, when she tried to tell them, this is it, I only have hours left, nobody believed her, and she needs to talk. Mm-hmm. We talked for 4 hours, but the first thing that she said was the reason that we were on the phone for 4 hours. She said to me, Susie, is this all I get, 56 years? What did I do with my life? Where did it go? And she always felt she had this black cloud over her, but it was because she never could let go of all the things that made her life so terrible. She never found her happiness, and she died that way.
Right.
We talked for hours, and I went back to when we were born and my earliest memories with her and the whole thing. And by the end, I was crying, but she was laughing. I called everybody when I hung up with her and said, call Ellen now. She's only got hours left. Nobody believed me. And her sister can't forgive herself. Now, this is a big thing. How do you forgive yourself?
Well, okay, so let me interrupt you a second. So let's go back. So, yes, at the end of the day, at the end of your life, what's it going to be worth? To have carried those grudges, to have made yourself sick, because anytime you weigh yourself down with anything like that, you're going to feel sick. And let me read something, okay? Hold on just a second. This came this morning to me. I get these Neil Donald Walsh quotes every morning. Well, this was this morning's, and I thought, wow, based on this show, this is pretty cool. So on this day of your life, dear friend, I believe God wants you to know that independence is your soul's natural state, and freedom is another name for God. Freedom is another name for God. The divine is that which is totally free all the time. Nothing constricts it. Nothing limits it.
Wow.
Nothing stops it or prohibits it or denies it in any way. Listen, I don't have to read the rest, but...
And that's right. That's like an aha moment there.
I know. But I want to just say that freedom is freedom. That's exactly what it is. Nothing restricts it. Nothing holds it back. Nothing anchors it. It's like, just let it go. No matter what, let it go. It's not saying, and I want to say this, it's not saying that if somebody wrongs you, by letting it go does not mean they were right, or that what they said was right, or they won over you, or they had control over you. It is not that. What letting go means is freedom. And what freedom is power over everything. It's freedom. You have made the choice to be free. You know, yesterday when I sang, I went up, that was my freedom. Had nothing to do with my brother calling me Leslie Gawk or anything else that anybody would have said in the audience about, oh, she's flat there, or she forgot that word, or whatever. I don't care. What it meant to me was freedom. Freedom to know that I did it. Freedom to know I could do it again. Freedom to know that I did it. I improved. That's freedom. And that's what forgiveness means. It means freedom. And it doesn't matter. It's empowering. I mean, Susiani, when you've forgiven before, when you had that freedom before, just describe that feeling.
It is freeing. Okay. It's not just, I'm going to tell you what it feels like.
Okay.
I tell everyone, and this is the truth.
Okay. What does it feel like?
No one can offend me anymore.
Okay.
Okay? Nothing offends me because you look, and you said it in the beginning of the show when you opened the show, okay? I look at people who are mean and nasty as, oh, my God, something happened to them. Somebody hurt them. What I want to do is I want to hug them. You know, and oftentimes I do it. When somebody's carrying on and they've got this anger, it might not be directed at me, but they're telling me about it, I put my arms around them.
Absolutely. Okay, so hold on. I want to say, if anybody else wants to call, because we want to hear more, we want to hear everybody's stories. I'd love to
I don't want to hijack the show.
Honey, you can't hijack me. I'm free. But people can call at the same time and, enter the conversation and share their passion and I love the fact that you have this kind of passion. It's great. And this is what it takes to put it out there and make it like no big deal and yet a big deal. So,
Marilyn,
yes,
I'll tell you why.
Why?
Okay, the feeling, I know that I am such a different person now, and that I wake up happy and I go to bed happy and I live this peaceful day because I don't have anything left to forgive. It's gone.
Well, that's great. And you're going to have other people who are going to step on your toes sometime, and you just look at them and say, and they'll say, I'm sorry.
Immediately.
Yeah, they'll say, I'm sorry. You'll say, it's no big deal. Okay, somebody's on the phone. Hold on. Hello?
It is me. It is Chris.
Hey,
Hi,
Chris.
Susie Annie. Hi, Marilyn. Hi,
Hey,
Amnon.
hi.
Hello, everybody.
Hey.
Hi, Chris. So I was calling because we're talking so much about forgiveness and what it's like to forgive someone else and how freeing that is. And I'm sitting here and I'm having this memory of a time that I was forgiven. And it is just coming through so strongly, I had to share it. I was a young driver, 16, and I was going shopping. I was by myself. I was bopping down the road. And I got a little excited, and I hit the gas too much. And as you might expect, here comes the police officer. So I see, his sirens in the rearview mirror and the lights, and I am starting to freak out. And I pulled over, and I am, talking to the police officer, and I am about 1 inch away from hyperventilating because I know I was going really fast. And he went back to his car, and of course he looks about 8 feet tall. I know he wasn't 8 feet tall, but he was just so large in presence. So he goes back to his car, and I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking, oh, my gosh, I really messed up. What are my parents going to say? I'm in so much trouble. And probably it was like 5 minutes, but it felt like 5 hours. He comes back to the driver's side, and he said, ma'am, I'm going to give you a warning. And I almost jumped out of the car and hugged him, and it felt so freeing. And ever since then, I've been a most excellent driver.
Well, and you know what? And that's what that quote from, about that we just read earlier, that Susiani had seen too from Yvonne. What was her? What's the author name on Oprah? What's her name again? Susiani?
Iyanla
Yeah.
Van Zandt.
That was her quote. That if you don't forgive, you interrupt the future. You interrupt the gift of what is lying there, the possibilities.
Yeah, and actually, it affects today too. I mean, if you don't forgive, it does.
Right,
You're
right.
keeping yourself away from the present,
Exactly.
from being in the present.
Absolutely, absolutely. Chris.
Yes.
You reflect. So that was a gift to you.
It was a wake-up call, and it was a total gift. And as a result of the gift, I walked away just thinking, oh, my gosh, he just gave me so much of a gift. He has no idea. And I've always felt responsible to honor that gift by being a safe driver. Obviously, it makes sense to be a safe driver anyway, but that gift of forgiveness as a new driver really just made such an impact on me. And I wanted to share that story about what it feels like to be forgiven. Because that's such a freeing thing.
Yes.
When someone says, I'm going to give you a break.
Yes, and when somebody says, I'm sorry, and you react in kind as opposed to, well, what the heck were you doing anyway? As opposed to that, it's like, don't worry about it, it's okay. I understand.
It's okay, right.
I mean, that to the other person is huge. Amnon had something to say.
I was just going to say, the same thing happened to me in the early days.
Oh, yeah?
And I found out that it makes you, that it has a better impact on you than to get a ticket. All the money that you would have to pay, and this is going to go up, and is not going to make you a better driver as much as when the cop says, all right, I'm going to let you go this time.
The fear.
Oh, those words.
It's
those
not
words
the
were
fear.
like magic.
It's what Chris is saying. It's you appreciate it, and you go through the same hell that if you would have gotten a ticket.
The
That's
fear,
probably
right.
why he sat there for
Right.
5 minutes. Now that I'm older and wiser, you sit there and you let the person baste in it, and you know
Yes.
what's going on through the person's head. It's the longer it takes. You say, "What is he throwing the book at me?" And you really getting, and then it leaves, and it's true, it works.
So that's an interesting comment that Amnon brought up about your about both of your situations, Chris, because if we think about that in a situation with somebody else, as opposed to getting angry with someone when they harm us or they do some kind of ill will, if we release them in the moment, how are they going forward? Are they going forward in a hopefully most of the time? Are they going forward with having that been something they learned from, or are they going just to be? Or are they going away angry and just holding on to the anger and no learning?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah. And how do you balance that?
You know, that's very interesting. So I want everybody to understand this, because I hadn't really processed it like this before. But when somebody apologizes to you for something, in a moment, let's say, and you release them in that moment, there's so much more learning and so much more good that can become from that.
And it's such a gift to both of you.
It's such a gift to both of you. Exactly. And I wanted to say, I had this whole thing that I had read about from the Mayo Clinic about health and all the stuff that what happens with depression and forgiveness and and stress and anxiety. I mean, lack of forgiveness causes anxiety, stress, low blood sugar, all this stuff. I mean, you get sick from it. And I don't care what people tell me, and I don't care how you hold on to it or where you put it. If you're putting it inside yourself, you're going to get sick if you're holding it. If you let it go, it's a lot better. But it says here, as you let go of grudges, you'll no longer define your life by how you've been hurt. You might even find compassion and understanding. So instead of becoming the anger and the hurt, I think that's kind of what Nelson Mandela says when he says it liberates your soul.
Yes.
You become who you are meant to be, as opposed to the hurt and the anger.
People should pay more attention to a lot of the words of Nelson Mandela. I just want to put that right in there.
Well, it's interesting you would say that, because, I said to somebody the other day, a lot of big famous figures have passed away in the past. And sometimes after a while, you are tired of hearing about things. And he's probably one of the only ones that I could have listened to about his life for a very long time.
I've watched every show, every opportunity, because I'm with you on that. He's one of my big heroes, always.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
Brave man, kind man, the sweetest person, and brilliant.
Brilliant. But, I heard also, and and this is fine because this is all in the line of forgiveness. And I think it's perfect to be talking about him so timely. I didn't get a chance to watch too much because I was really busy that day, but he had to fight. Did you know that? It wasn't all peaceful.
Nope.
Yep, he had to fight and he had to defend.
Yep.
And he was a boxer. Did you know that?
Yeah,
I didn't know that either. They spent more time on that Walker guy on most of the media than they did on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true.
If you paid attention, there were shows that you could watch about him, and 2020 did their first half hour on him Friday night.
Yeah?
It was fabulous.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty cool. Chris, what were you going to say?
No, I just said I think it's fabulous. He's such a role model in so many ways, and just in our own home, we've been able to talk about, gearing up for the show. We were talking a lot about forgiveness with the kids, and what do you think about this? And with Nelson Mandela's passing away, we incorporated his death and his life into our conversations. What is it like, do you think, to be in prison for, I think 27 years.
Yeah.
27 years, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're released, what do you think you would feel in your heart? And the kids were like, well, we'd be so angry. And, we would just be, we would have that. And I said, well, Nelson Mandela didn't feel that way. He was able to transcend that and view it from a very different perspective. So we've had some really great conversations at home about anger and, when you're treated badly by other people, how do you turn that around?
Mm-hmm. So this is great. I love talking about Nelson Mandela now because I think it's perfect in defining forgiveness. So I want to welcome anybody to call us who has a perspective, an understanding, an idea, whatever. 919-518-9773. This is your chance to just communicate with a community of people who can really associate with some of what you're saying. And we're all about forgiveness here and love. So even if you agree or don't agree, that's okay. That's all part of forgiveness, is being comfortable with both sides now. You know what I mean? Well, computers, 2K now. So who just said something? Excuse me. Computers, 2K voice. Thank you, Amnon.
2K voice.
Yeah. So what made
Carolyn, I'm going to sign off now so I can go back to chat, okay?
Okay, honey. Thank you.
All right, thanks,
Well,
everybody.
you can stay here. You could stay if you want.
I got to go take notes.
Well, you can copy it later. Listen, I want to know what was it about him? What did he have that when he came out, he was a better man than went in and he wasn't full of anger? And he took what he learned. What was that? What was that thing?
In a nutshell, for me,
Yeah.
Okay, he embodies and always has coming from a place of love and not from fear.
And how did he not lose that when he was in prison and he came out?
Because if you do that and you make that the way, everything you say and do and think and feel comes from a place of love instead of fear, okay? It's the way of life. It's the way that's who he became.
So they could not take that away from him.
No, you couldn't.
Okay.
You can't.
So that's very, very important, is that you cannot take it away from you. If you are it, then nothing anybody says or does can take away that from you, because you're it.
That's right.
You're it.
That's right.
Right? And if you know that your life is meant for something, and that no matter what somebody else does, your life is still meant for that something. And you believe,
because his life, he embodies goodness, okay? He embodies the way we all, if you think about when you were a kid and what you taught right and wrong, and, I used to, as a little kid, when I was 5, good is God with the extra O. Evil is the devil minus the D. How hard is it to know how you should live your life? But then things happen in your life, and you get these hurts, and different things happen. You have to go back to the goodness. And if you always come from a place of love and not from fear, in the way you act and react, and in everything you do and say, but he did have a purpose. And you see, he knew what his purpose was. All right, and thank God. I mean, that's a good man.
Okay, so
there are people whose purpose is
so
to
how
harm.
do you? Okay, so now the question is, how do we get there? Okay, I think that's very important. I mean, you have people like Nelson Mandela. I mean, you have people like Mother Teresa. You have these people, that have walked the planet. They were real people that people saw. We saw Gandhi. I mean, we saw Mother Teresa. We saw, there are people. I mean, I've never seen God. I've experienced God lately, but I haven't physically seen a physical identification of God, right? But I feel it. I feel the presence. How do you, as a human being, do these things as a normal human being? How do we do these things that a Mandela did, that a Mother Teresa did, that a Gandhi did? How do you do those things? Because I think when you can connect with the actions of a Mandela, you can feel what Mandela felt. It's just about wanting to have more of that and to get a taste of what it feels like to be free, to have your soul liberated. When you say to somebody, when somebody has wronged you and you don't hold a grudge, and you can call them up on the phone and they're ready for bear, man. They're ready for you to knock them over the head. People know that there's been yuck between people. If somebody yucks something there and you heard it and you felt it and you were the receiver of the yuck, the other person on some level has to know it. And when you engage with that person again, they're ready for you to come at them. Can you only imagine what it feels like when you don't to that other person? That in itself sets them free. You have the power, we have the power to, on some level, to control the energy between people. And we can do that. And that is much more powerful than feeling like somebody had power over us by doing something wrong. The power of doing something right is far more powerful and enjoyable than the power of yuck.
Right. And if you hold on to that yuck, okay, that's taking the energy out of you that would be going towards you staying on purpose and moving on. But I want to say something about Nelson Mandela and the 27 years and when he got out of jail. When you've been incarcerated for 27 years, a man like him, okay, just we're taking him, okay, you had to know that he didn't know. He never knew he was ever going to get out. Now he gets out, okay? He looked at that as his opportunity, okay, to do more good.
Yes, to make up for the 20-some-odd years that he couldn't do.
Because he was given freedom now when he never knew he was going to have it. He was going to make the most of that freedom and make sure everybody else stayed free. There it is.
Yes, absolutely. And I personally would like to use a Nelson Mandela as my as a trophy on my mantle, something to strive for, a remembrance of what it feels like to be kind and loving to people, even when they don't know you're doing that.
But you know what I found out?
What?
No, I'm with kids all the time.
Okay.
2 kids were here when he died, and it was all over every channel. And I turned up, and I'm like, oh, my God, Nelson Mandela died. And I turned it up, and I went, shh, shh, shh. They watched, and they both had questions, and they wanted to know who the man was. I explained. Okay, they wanted to know what apartheid was, and it was an 11-year-old and a 7-year-old, girl and a boy. Now, that was, I believe it was Thursday. Then Friday they went to school, and I had Gigi Friday night. So she gets very philosophical just when she's falling asleep. She slept over the weekend. And she finally calms down, and how she unwinds is to talk as she's going to sleep. And it's amazing what comes out of a 7-year-old's mouth. But she had also, just hours before, watched 2020 with me, so that's the second time she was being exposed to him.
Okay, so give me the story, because we're almost out of time.
I asked her, okay, did they mention him in school today?
Yeah.
I cannot find a kid in this neighborhood who said yes to that question.
Really?
And it would have been so important to hold him up as an example.
Yes. I wonder why they didn't do that.
I have no idea.
It's not politically correct? Yeah, a lot of like Amnon said, a lot of adults don't know. So we just...
That's true.
Okay, so when you know about people like this, just share their wisdom. I think that's a huge part of what we can do. You don't even need to share the name. It's like...
And you know, the thing about leading by example...
Yeah.
Okay, when we forgive, we show other people how to forgive, how easy it can be.
Yes.
The hardest person to forgive, though, Marilyn, is yourself.
Well, we didn't talk much about that, but let me say this. When you say I'm sorry to somebody, or I'm sorry you felt that way, you don't have to, it's not an acknowledgement that you've done something wrong. It's an acknowledgement that they feel a certain way, and I'm sorry you feel that way. But you do not, it's not about agreeing, but you can say, I'm sorry you feel that way. So hold that. You know, there was a thing, Chris sent me the story about this young, now he's now in his 50, I think he's 50 something. And he posted on Facebook, he was a mugger when he was younger. He mugged some guy, And anyway, he found the guy on Facebook recently and wrote a comment of apology. And he said that it bothered him throughout his entire adult life. He's now, I think, a father, whatever. I don't have all the details in front of me. But it doesn't matter. What matters is, it's like I said earlier, it is never too late to apologize to somebody. It feels great when you can do it right away, but it's never, never, never too late. So hold that. Now, as far as forgiving yourself, we didn't talk about that much. And that probably will take a whole nother show because it is so important. Because if you cannot forgive yourself, you have a very difficult time forgiving other people. And when we can take a look at ourselves, so thank you, Suziani, for saying that. But when
how you forgive yourself, though, Marilyn?
Yeah, how? Go ahead, quick, tell me.
Say I'm sorry to whoever, whatever it is that you can't forgive yourself for, that you hurt somebody, that you did something that made somebody else's life worse, okay? Go to that person and say, I'm sorry, so you can get rid of it.
Right. But also when you make mistakes, you break something, you drop something, you don't do something right, you think you look like a fool, you did all these things. Take all those moments as a moment of growth and learning. So if you don't think you did something well, it's not about beating yourself up. It's about, okay, what did I learn from that experience? Yes. What can I do? How could I speak differently? Or what is it that I know that I didn't share? And if you break something, so what? Who cares? Laugh. I mean, one of the things we have to do with ourselves is laugh more.
Like you said, don't sweat the small stuff, Marilyn, and that's exactly
yeah,
part
really.
of it.
Yeah, really. It just doesn't do us any good. It doesn't help us further our path. And this thing about Mandela and the schools, I want to say this. We are responsible 100% of the time for whatever it is. So even if the schools are not teaching about this, or for whatever reason they don't feel that they're in the right place or whatever timing, who knows? It doesn't matter. Let's teach ourselves. Let's teach everybody that we can teach. Let's be an example. Let's show people how it can be. Let's live the Mandela life, the Gandhi life. Let's just be it. Let's just, smile back at somebody when they've wronged you and say, I'm sorry, or they roll over your feet with a shopping cart and, instead of like, oh, my goodness, how could you do such a thing? Just turn around. Because you know what I always say? I don't know, Suziani, have you ever gone through a red light before?
Never.
Never?
Absolutely not. Not even a yellow light. Sorry,
are you kidding me? Are you serious?
I'm serious.
Oh, my God. Well, then you're not my good example. I'm not. Have you ever gone through a red light before by accident?
Yeah.
Okay, so Amnon says yes. So what I say is, listen, I am going through a red light. At some point in my life, I will roll through or go through by mistake. So everybody's going to make a mistake. Everybody, including me. And the more we take a look at these mistakes as not as a learning lesson, some of them are tragic. Some of them are huge mistakes.
Right.
However, the more we look at them as a learning, and the quicker we can get our arms wrapped around it, and maybe the length of time that it takes to wrap our arms around something is part of the lesson. There's something embedded in that. So whatever it is, it's perfect. And it's 2:00. Time flies. Suziani, time flies.
I had one more thing I wanted to say. I wanted to quote
quickly.
Okay,
yeah.
My little girl Gigi talks out loud to God before she falls asleep. And Friday night she said, thank you, God, for Nelson, because she was calling Mandela Nelson now. She said, for Nelson, now that he's an angel, this is what she said, now that he's an angel, maybe he can help all of us make the world a better place.
That's honestly out of the mouths of Babe. Because, man, wouldn't you like him to be your angel?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my God. Oh, guide. What a wonderful thing to pray for.
But when she said it, I said, I'm going to make him my angel. I'm going to live my life with the kind of courage and integrity and love that this man had.
Right, and reverence. And
Yep.
and I will just say in closing, Debbie Bruck on our chat says, live your own life, not the life of others. And that is huge. That's the separation between forgiving and not forgiving. because what are you going to hold on to? So I think that's perfect. Thank you, Susiani, for co-hosting with me today.
Oh, my goodness. That's what it ended up being, didn't it?
And I want to thank all of you out there for being with us today. I know your time is very, very special, and we're glad you chose to spend it with us and Amnon and Susiani and Chris and everybody on the chat. We will post the show notes within the next couple of days on the MarilynShannon.com website, as well as our Facebook page. Like us everywhere. Like Marilyn Shannon on Facebook, like the Breaking Free Show on Facebook, Nissan Communications. We'd love to have you. If I can be of any service at all, just click above my head. That's my email, and email me. I'd love to work with anyone about anything in my coaching practice. And with that, thank you all. Have a marvelous day, and we'll see you next week. We have some special guests next week. Bye.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Sundays, 9 a.m. till noon. Health In with Debbie Bruck, Mondays, 11 a.m. till noon. Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Mondays, 1 till 2 p.m. Lessons of Vietnam with NCVVI members, the second and fourth Wednesday of each month, from 7:30 till 8:30 p.m. Reawaken Your Brilliance with Julie Seibert, Wednesdays, 9 till 10 p.m. And if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at www.nissancommunications.com. Sponsored by ThatVidBlasterGuy.com, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.